The first is for new technologies being introduced into the organization. We work directly between the technology teams and the business teams to make sure everyone's moving at the same pace, and that also that the business teams are ready to actually receive the technology.
Yeah.
Because if you really think about it, before go live, all you're doing is spending money. The second leg of what we do is what we call digital workplace. So these are all the enterprise technologies. The Microsofts, the Survey Monkeys, take Canva, take your pick. So in that form, I have a dedicated team that acts like a dedicated customer success management team.
Okay.
So they operate very similarly to that. The third leg of what we do is actually we help facilitate IT transformation itself. So we focus in on IT individuals. Because, as we all know, technology changes I wouldn't even say 6 months anymore. It's more like 6 weeks.
Sped up quite a bit recently.
That's right. That's right. So,
Yeah.
Fun and interesting.
Okay, welcome back to the Tech Jobber podcast, and super excited about today's guest because he's at a company that I would not expect to be a kind of tech pioneer company, but he's doing some great things in AI. He mentioned NFTs, and he works for the Mattel company that makes Barbie and Hot Wheels.
That's right.
So I said, okay, we have to talk about this on the podcast. I think everyone needs to hear about this. So we have Tony Fatouros. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Chris.
Tony, for anyone that is unaware of you, why don't you just give everyone your title and kind of what you're doing over at Mattel?
Sure. My title is Director of IT for Organizational Change Management and Change Enablement. That's really long.
Yeah.
So we call it OCM. But basically, my organization does three things. The first is for new technologies being introduced into the organization. We work directly between the technology teams and the business teams to make sure everyone's moving at the same pace, and that also that the business teams are ready to actually receive the technology.
Yeah.
Because if you really think about it, before go live, all you're doing is spending money.
Yeah. Yep.
You're only getting the benefit if you go live and you're doing it well. The second leg of what we do is what we call digital workplace. So these are all the enterprise technologies. The Microsofts, the Survey Monkeys, take Canva, take your pick. So in that form, I have a dedicated team that acts like a dedicated customer success management team.
Okay.
So they operate very similarly to that. The third leg of what we do is actually we help facilitate IT transformation itself. So we focus in on IT individuals, employees, to make sure that working together with human resources, working together with leadership, that we are promoting transformation in the right direction, professional development, making sure the organization is operating as well as it can be.
Yeah.
Because, as we all know, technology changes I wouldn't even say 6 months anymore. It's more like 6 weeks.
Sped up quite a bit recently.
That's right. That's right. So,
Yeah.
Fun and interesting.
Yeah. So let's talk a brief kind of run through of your background, how you got to the Mattel company, and then we'll talk a lot about what you're doing there, which is really interesting.
Okay. Well, I've always been passionate about helping organizations accelerate the value of their technology investments. So let me break down what that means. I'm not a technologist by trade. So I don't program, I don't code, I don't do any of those things.
Yeah.
Where I've always sat is kind of the intersection of people, process, and technology.
Okay.
And that has been the entire length of my career. So, for example, project management, program management, business analysis. I've also been portfolio manager, so dedicated in terms of being a business partner to various parts of businesses.
Yeah.
You know, consumer versus B2B or something along those lines. So that's always been the area that I've been in. I started out my journey in New Jersey. You probably hear it in my voice.
Yes. Same.
I always say, you know, you can take the guy out of New Jersey, but you can't take New Jersey out of the guy,
That's
obviously. Right. So I started my career actually in fashion of all places.
Wow.
Yeah.
In technology or?
Yeah.
Wow.
I wanted to be a corporate lawyer because I heard they make big money. Then I started the program. I said, oh, this is not for me.
Yeah.
So I was able to get into a management training program at a company at that time was called Liz Claiborne. I think today they're DKNY. And I spent almost the first decade of my career in technology at Liz Claiborne, which it was the 90s. And for anyone who was around back then, you know, that was the whole coming down off of the Wall Street movie era and greed is good. And, you know, it was an amazing time.
Yeah.
From there, I moved into, you know, consulting and various other roles. The majority of the time in my career during that period really was kind of focused in more on project management, program management.
Yeah. What type of projects for Liz?
Oh, all kinds. I mean, no matter what we were implementing, we were, you know, usually I will say it was predominantly new technology, something that was brand new to the organization was kind of how my career kind of vectored.
Okay.
You know, so then midlife crisis hit.
Sure.
And I was working at Panasonic at the time, and we had this little thing called Superstorm Sandy.
Yeah.
And I happened to live beachfront.
Whereabouts?
Asbury Park.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was in a big concrete condominium tower, so we weren't concerned. We did lose power.
Yeah.
But after that adventure, you know, I really reflected and said, I think it's time for a change while I'm still young enough to be able to make a change. So decided to pack up and move to, of all places, Los Angeles, because hopefully I'll catch an earthquake or something like that. Spent 10 years in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And then had the opportunity to move here to beautiful southern Florida.
Yeah.
So here I am.
Yeah. And so along the way, you know, I know we were talking about before the show, you were involved in a couple consulting companies.
That's right.
So why don't you just kind of go into what consultant could mean a lot of things.
That's right.
Because obviously, I mean, I place consultants at Fortune 500 companies, but that's not the type of consulting you were doing. You were more of a kind of enterprise consultant.
So it really took two forms. The first was staff augmentation contractor.
Okay.
Right. So we have a defined project. We want you to come in and we want you to do this defined piece of work for us.
Yeah.
Come in, execute. Thank you very much. The other type of consulting that I did was more strategic consulting. So clients looking for a solution, solve my problem, and then we'll figure out how we're going to execute against it. I played both roles, and I can say there are definitely pluses and minuses to contracting versus consulting, and also contracting, consulting, and full-time.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely a very, very different model.
Okay.
And a big mindset shift.
Yeah. What are those different mindsets for each one?
So when you're walking into, so on the contracting and consulting side, you know, you are being engaged to do something very specific. So you know that there's kind of a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? So that kind of drives a lot of the things that you're doing. And also, it's typically for a specific initiative or set of initiatives. So you have a very narrow scope, and you get very focused and tunnel vision on just kind of delivering against those. You know, on the plus side, you're able to track your progress very easily. You know when you're moving the needle for your clients. On the negative side, depending upon the culture of the organization, you can feel like an outsider, or you know, you used to kind of have this situation where it's like, oh, something went wrong, blame the consultant, you know, kind of a thing. So that's just something that people need to be aware of if they're thinking about going into contracting or consulting. That you know, even though you might be working inside of an organization and kind of feel like part of that, you really have to kind of get in under the covers of that organization's culture to really understand how they truly view you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So at that point, your compensation, you were, you had a LLC that you were collecting
No, actually,
on,
in
W2?
both. Yeah. In both cases, I was W-2 to both of those multiple. I actually have consulted 4 times in my career, believe it or not. But it was always to another company, so I was getting a regular paycheck. In one consulting model, they did pay me hourly. So if I wasn't working, I was not getting a paycheck, which also had its pluses and minuses because you tend to be able to get a higher rate.
Yeah.
In a situation like that. So it's interesting. If anyone's ever thinking about getting into consulting or contracting, really look into some of the options. Explore different companies and look at the various compensation models because you should be aware, like, for example, in the one that I had talked about, if you're not working, you're essentially not getting a paycheck.
Yeah.
In other organizations that were W-2, if you were not put onto a brand new project within 90 days, then you would be let go.
Yeah.
Kind of a situation. I think, a lot of the bigger kind of, the big fours and things like that have adopted policies like that as well now.
Yeah.
So definitely interesting. I do love being an insider though.
Yeah.
Inside of organizations.
As an employee.
As an employee.
Yeah. Because you have more skin in the game, right?
You do. I mean, you definitely have skin in the game, but there's a lot more staying power to the things that you're working on. So in other words, chances are you're there when it was first ideated until the point where someone decided that they were going to put money against something. And then you're there even after the consultants leave and you're kind of living with the decisions that were made or kind of where you ended up with. So that value cycle is something that always fascinated me. As a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons why about 15 years ago I pivoted my career kind of away from project management and into change management, organizational change management.
Yeah.
In the PM realm, you usually deliver something, you're around for like a short amount of period. Sometimes they call it hypercare, sometimes they call it warranty time. But then you're done and you're off to the next, maybe you take a small break and you're on to the next project. That used to nag at me a lot because I was always kind of like, okay, I'm kind of loving and leaving you. Now I'm going off to my next thing and now, but in organizational change management, you're there really, like I said earlier, you're only spending money up to go live.
Yeah.
The benefits are actually materializing after go live. And that's really kind of everything that organizational change management does, particularly relative to technology. That's really when the nurturing starts. Everything you're doing is really teeing up people for those first critical weeks, months, whatever the case may be. And if you do it well, you actually accelerate the adoption, which means the benefits come faster.
Yeah. So you're saying, okay, I know we invested all this money into this new technology. We're 3 months in, look at the ROI already.
That's right.
We've already paid back.
That's right.
And now we're in profit. Right?
Exactly.
So,
or, when you do comparisons of projects or initiatives, why is it that, in the past they had, I don't know, 100 P1 tickets opened up in the span of a month or something like that. But now all of a sudden you're down to maybe 2 and 3 that are legitimately technological, the API went down, whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
And that's because of something you helped implement.
That's right.
That just narrowed those down. Okay, cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. So at what point, did you go right from consulting to Mattel or?
Actually, I did.
Yeah.
So I was working full-time in Panasonic before I moved to Los Angeles.
Okay.
I was there for just about 2 years. Then the storm happened, and I said, I need to make a life change. So when I moved to Los Angeles, I didn't really know the lay of the land. I didn't even know where to move.
Yeah.
We actually just looked at the map, went the middle.
Oh.
So we ended up in central Los Angeles in Miracle Mile.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I didn't know anyone there. I didn't know the lay of the land. I had been a client of a consulting company. So I actually contacted them and said, hey, I'd love to, do you have any opportunities for me? I'd love to work in LA. And they said, yes, we can definitely hook you up. So I actually landed at DirecTV.
Okay. What type of things were you doing for them?
Program management.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely program. So I had multiple projects that were reporting into me. Again, as a contractor, I was there specifically for those projects. The interesting thing was, DirecTV was very unique in that it is a very technological organization. I mean, they sell subscription services, satellite.
Yeah, beaming a TV to
send
little
rockets
mini
off.
satellites, right?
I mean, I met rocket scientists.
Really?
Yeah, it was pretty wild. So what had happened there was, because I was able to kind of move things along for certain things, they just kept chewing me up. And so before I knew it, I had been contracting at DirecTV for over 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And then finally they were like, AT&T came in, bought them. They were in the middle of that merger.
Yeah.
So that's when they said, okay, it's time to kind of move on.
Yeah.
And then I went to, other organizations. I went to Amgen.
Okay.
They do a lot of cancer therapies. They're a very, very big pharmaceutical company.
Yeah.
A few other clients. And then I went to another company, which is called CGI. And CGI has a fascinating story. They work with all industries, but the part of the organization that I landed in was they provide customized ERP software for city, state, and local governments.
Okay.
So that was definitely an interesting time.
Yeah.
And worked on Los Angeles. If you ever want to know how government works, get on one of these projects.
Right.
You definitely get to look behind the curtain.
See where all our tax money's going.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't comment on that, but it definitely is. I learned a lot. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah.
Well, it was while I was at CGI. I actually decided to leave because my mother had become very, very ill. So I said, I can't do a lot of the commuting, and if you've been to LA, you know what LA commutes like.
Yeah. 9 miles, 50 minutes.
Pretty much.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
So at that point, I decided to take a break, and that's when I ended up connecting with someone who would eventually become my boss on LinkedIn, and she was looking for someone to come in and handle in IT organizational change management specifically for supply chain.
Okay.
Which I have a lot of background in from being at Panasonic with consumer goods and 10 years at Liz Claiborne,
Yeah, it's all consumer products, right?
Exactly. So it was an easy step in, and then we just gelled and we started doing amazing things.
Yeah.
So.
And do you think your choice of job title, it's kind of industry agnostic? You can either deliver these changes to organizations or not. It's not like, because some of the jobs I place, it's like, well, we need someone that has the healthcare background.
Right.
Where it seems like for you, it didn't really, it was just like, hey, I could do this for you.
The common thread was really technology.
Yeah.
The industry the industry only mattered if it was something highly industrial. So, for example, at Amgen, like I had mentioned earlier, the project I specifically was working on was a new, if you've ever heard of Viva.
Yeah.
Okay. So they have Viva Vault, which is one of their modules that kind of handles research, papers and that sort of thing. And they were implementing it to actually handle the inventorying and distribution of scientific marketing material, specifically for healthcare providers, doctors, that sort of thing. It was the first time that they were trying something like that on a global scale.
Yeah.
So in that instance, and like I said, if I went through all the companies I ever worked for, I think YouTube would probably ban this video.
Right.
But way back when, I also worked with Merck.
Okay.
So I did have some pharmaceutical, and I also worked for a medical device company in Princeton, New Jersey. So I did have a healthcare background, medical background.
Yeah.
Pharma and medical device. So in that instance, they were looking for somebody who knew how to talk to people in the medical realm.
Yeah. And obviously there are regulations in the healthcare field that you have to kind of navigate a little
That's
bit. Right. So, okay. So really, besides that, it really, it was never really an issue to say, okay, yeah, I never done TV. Yeah. You can't really have too many other companies that have mini satellites to people's houses besides DirecTV, right? So It's really just them. And-
No, absolutely. Another good example is one of the consulting, I'll call it a gig, that I landed was with Caesars Entertainment.
Oh, wow.
So I was actually commuting every week to Las Vegas.
Oh, wow.
But the funny part was, rather than drive, they made me fly because at the time you could get $49 round trip tickets. Whereas if I drove, it would have been like $700 a week for the mileage.
Wow.
So they were like, no, you fly.
Yeah.
And I probably would have done the same thing, to be honest
Sure.
with you. But that particular engagement was basically, it was twofold. To get the initial stages of their ERP implementation going, but also to kind of build up the organizational change management chops
Okay.
of their IT leadership simultaneously. So that one was an interesting one. Yeah, in about 8 months, I was flying back and forth every week.
Wow.
To
So just a Monday to Thursday type thing, and then
oh no, Monday to Friday.
okay, Monday to Friday.
Oh yeah, Friday night I'd come home about 11 o'clock. People
Wow.
were like,
Oh, so you were working a full day Friday? Cause
oh yeah,
wow.
oh yeah. It was funny because people I used to get on the plane. I would be like, maybe there were like 2 or 3 other like senior citizens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause everyone's
Because-
going to Vegas.
Exactly. Everyone's going the other
Friday
direction.
night.
Schmuck is going
Yeah. Right.
the other way.
Yeah. Right. You and some guys that lost their house or something.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, in that instance, they didn't really care if I had a gaming background. They really cared if I had the IT OCM chops
Yeah.
to be able to help build them, but also some familiarity with implementing ERP, which I have.
Yeah. A ton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not young.
Yeah.
I'm not old, but I'm not young.
Sure.
Been around the block.
Okay. So at what point? So now we get to Mattel, which you started out in LA. That's based in LA.
Yes, they're based
Okay.
in El Segundo.
Okay.
It's literally 5 minutes from LAX.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's wild.
Yeah.
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 And I have to tell you, as I'm sure you've gathered by now, I've worked a lot of different industries and I worked for a lot of organizations. Mattel and one other company, and I'll tell you, Integra Life Sciences, the
Yeah.
medical device in Princeton, are probably my 2 best experiences
Okay.
working for organizations. And I kind of realized about myself after I finally arrived at Mattel and really reflected on this. My sweet spot is kind of that $1 billion to $5 billion company. The minute a company starts going over that and kind of gets into the double digits on the billions, it's now becoming too bureaucratic for
Yeah.
me.
Now you're playing politics and stuff.
Exactly.
Not getting stuff done, which is your skill set, right?
That's right. I mean, particularly for the things that I do, I need the ability to be able to access senior leadership in a relatively straightforward manner.
Yeah.
But if I have to start, climbing through multiple layers of leadership and that sort of thing, it doesn't really work that well.
Yeah.
And I've learned that over the years. So, but Mattel is an amazing company.
Yeah.
If anyone out there ever has an opportunity to apply, strongly advise it.
Yeah.
Send me your best people, please.
Sure. Yes, I will.
Yeah, it's just an incredible culture.
Yeah.
Really
yeah.
is.
So, I mean, diving into obviously that's your first jump into the toy business, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Is it? Yes. Yes,
yeah.
it is. I was like, wait, did Panasonic? No.
Yeah. So what was that? Was there a learning curve in that, or?
Oh,
just-
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were some surprises in that industry for you?
Oh, wow. First and foremost, Mattel takes child safety incredibly seriously.
Okay.
And that was a big aha moment for me. Because, you think about toys and you think about fun and entertainment.
Right.
The first place your head does not go is child safety.
Right.
you
Someone
know?
choking on a
Exactly.
piece of Barbie that breaks off. Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So that was probably my first aha moment. When you join Mattel, you go through an orientation, you learn about the history of the company and the whole 9 yards. Definitely the child safety. The other big aha moment was kind of the welcoming culture that I encountered as soon as I joined.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, people were coming to my office and saying, hey, I just heard that you just joined. I wanted to stop and introduce myself and welcome you.
Wow. Yeah.
Right?
That doesn't. Maybe like in a week they'll see at the coffee machine like, hey,
Right,
hi.
no,
Like,
no, I
they
mean-
were coming to you. Okay.
Yeah, no. Or I would be stopped and go, gee, I haven't met you before. You know, my name is so-and-so. This is what I do. Welcome. Or are you new? Or something like that. People were very welcoming. So, of course, I had to be like that,
Yeah.
you know, as well. Because it just kind of rubs off on you.
Yeah.
So, but definitely it was the child safety aspect that you really have to take I mean, this is the future you're holding in your hands.
Right.
You can't screw around with these things.
Yeah.
You know. So I really give the company a lot of credit.
What are their main drivers of, obviously Barbie?
Yeah.
You mentioned Hot Wheels.
Yeah. Barbie, Hot Wheels, Polly Pocket, Bob the Builder, Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, in Fort Lauderdale, I think in the convention center, there's a big interactive Thomas the Tank Engine experience there that I didn't even know was there until I went.
Yeah.
And I took pictures and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, we have a lot of brands. I mean, Mattel was traditionally a toy company, you know, that really kind of focused in on, you know, shelf space.
Yeah.
That worked for a while. And you know, again, I'm not sharing anything. It's not public knowledge. In the I'm going to say probably 2000s, you know, the company started to experience challenges.
Yeah.
You know, for an assortment of reasons.
Is that
So
what, like Toys R Us closings? Is that because it focuses on shelf space?
yeah, I mean, it was just, you know, it was very retail focused.
Yeah.
You know, very, very retail focused. They changed leadership around 2016, 2017. Brought in a gentleman by the name of Inan Kreis, who, by the way, amazing human being, incredible. And his background was from entertainment.
Okay.
And what he actually started doing was realizing that there is inherent value, not just in our products, but in our actual intellectual property. The Barbie brand,
Yeah.
the Hot Wheels brand, Matchbox, that's another one,
Yeah.
Magic 8 Ball.
Yeah.
So from that point, you know, job one was really to return Mattel to profitability, which they achieved, I believe it was in, I'm going to say 2020. Yeah, it was. It was February of 2020 we announced it.
Yeah.
That Mattel had finally broken even for the first time in a number of years.
Wow.
And then we started growing. So the strategy really is not so much, you know, toy business is core to who we are.
Yeah.
But when you think about it from an IP perspective, what we've actually realized is we have fans of a lot of these well-known and dearly loved brands.
Yeah.
So what we've actually decided to do is, and again, when I say we, not me,
Sure. Company.
you know,
Yeah.
you know, but you know, a big part of our strategy now is really around focusing around entertainment. Entertainment and other opportunities to really kind of drive our IP recognition out there. So you might have heard of the Barbie movie.
Yeah. That's what
Okay.
I was going to just ask you about.
Exactly. That is one very big example of that strategy in action.
Yeah. So obviously $1 billion movie. I'm
Right.
assuming besides more Barbie movies, they're going to do a Hot Wheels movie. You know, they're going to.
Oh yeah, we just announced. Yeah, we
They're
just
going to do all that stuff.
Yeah,
now,
we just
right?
announced Matchbox.
Wow.
And I thought I saw another one off the top of my head. It's escaping me. It'll probably come back to me after we're done.
Sure,
So I
right.
apologize. I'll put it
Yeah.
in the comments.
Yeah.
But yeah, so entertainment. We've also announced a partnership to do an amusement park.
Yeah.
And actually just announced that that company is actually going to do another one, and it's going to be all Barbie and Hot Wheels. It's going to be exclusive to our IP only.
Yeah. So are you partnering with like Universal to repurpose that? I know, or
You know,
Disney or something.
yeah. So we have a lot of partnerships. So, for example, Disney, we have licensing partnerships to do, for example, all the princess dolls. So if you go into the store, you see Disney princess dolls.
Yeah.
You'll see the Mattel logo on them.
Oh, okay.
You know, but you know, I mean, companies like Disney that have their own IP like that, they'll license it to multiple providers depending on, their strengths. But in our case, we're partnering with a lot of, for example, experiences, trying to bring those to life. Same thing with entertainment. We see a lot of opportunity there. And in this process, we discovered that there really is a fandom for a lot of these intellectual properties. So it's been an amazing few years.
Yeah.
I encourage anyone, go out to the Mattel website, listen to one of the investor calls. It's not boring.
Right.
It's not boring.
Yeah. It's all stuff people,
Right. I mean,
the
especially if you
investor calls
listen.
you know what they're talking about.
Exactly.
It's a little different, right?
Exactly. So amusement parks, movies, we've done all kinds of licensing deals. We're bringing back Barney, the purple dinosaur.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's a movie waiting to happen.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of excitement on the horizon.
Yeah.
But the interesting part of that is technology is a big driver of that.
Yeah. So let's get into that. What are you doing from a technology perspective to support the toy business, now the entertainment business? What are you doing now?
So there are a number of irons in the fire that we've shared publicly. Over the past few years, we have developed a digital collectors business. And initially the idea for Hot Wheels. So initially the thought process was, back when crypto and NFT was really a big thing.
Yeah.
We had begun exploring that. And what we decided to do was go in a digital collectible direction. So in other words, you don't need crypto. You can buy it with a credit card.
Yeah.
And essentially you would get in some instances, it's a purely digital collectible item. And again, Hot Wheels. But for certain drops, you would also get a physical.
Okay.
So you would
get
get a
both.
digital version, and then you would get a collectible, limited edition Hot Wheels car. That's the physical twin of the digital version.
Yeah.
That was spun up, and this is why I get excited. See, I'm starting to smile now,
Sure.
right? Because I work with incredibly brilliant people. In 2020, they spun this up, and we launched the initial kind of digital collectibles concept. I'm sorry, no. I want to say it was 2022. What year are we in? Oh, my God. That's how fast it's all flying.
I know, right?
But, yeah, they spun up the collectibles. And then we implemented our own secondary market. So now you can trade with friends on the
Digitally.
Digitally.
Gotcha.
So if you have a certain model of a car, there's auctions, there's all types of, you can outwardly buy them from people.
Yeah.
So that was one of the big things, kind of our first foray into digital. The other thing is we've spun up a very successful direct-to-consumer business. Now, American Girl is also one of our brands.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so the lifelike looking dolls.
Yeah.
With retail stores. But we didn't have a Mattel direct-to-consumer business, and I say that loosely because, again, to my knowledge at the time.
Yeah.
But there was a new concept where they wanted to partner with other popular brands and influencers, social influencers, to kind of create culturally relevant collectible opportunities for fandom. So some examples were, if you remember the movie House of Gucci?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we did a collectible-sized, that Cadillac.
Oh, wow.
That they drove in the movie.
Yeah.
And it was like it had the Gucci, branding all over it. And it was the red, green, brown, and all that other stuff. So that's an example of what I'm talking about, like collectible level exclusives.
Yeah.
That was spun up during the pandemic, actually, 2020, and that business has been on fire ever since.
Yeah. that the collector's market is so
Yeah.
untapped for stuff like that.
I mean, and again, everything is all limited edition, but our area specifically partnered with the business to spin up that Mattel Creations business. I don't want to just say website because obviously, there's lots
it's a lot
that goes in.
behind
Yeah, it's basically a digital storefront for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
And then implement digital collectibles as an actual business, and then implement the secondary market. As a matter of fact, and I had nothing to do with any of this. I just kind of sat back and just basked in the glow
Sure.
of all these brilliant people. But we actually won 3 consecutive CIO 100 awards from IDC. Number 1 for the spinning up the Mattel Creations business, which is now one of our hottest lines.
Yeah.
For implementing the digital collectibles and then implementing the secondary market.
Yeah.
So from a technology industry perspective, my leadership and these amazing brainiac, beautiful brains that I get to talk to all the time are getting industry recognitions.
Yeah. That's awesome. Now, back to the digital collectibles, is the long-term play, okay, you have, it's Matchbox NFTs. Okay, is the long-term play to drive those in the metaverse, like drive your Matchbox car in the metaverse? Do you have a metaverse kind of vision?
So we actually have a dedicated digital games function that is outside of the IT area. We work closely with them. I'm not too sure kind of where they're going because right now they're doing a lot of partnerships. I mean, the good news is right now, Mattel is very in demand in terms of people wanting to partner with us.
Yeah.
To advance the intellectual property or, licensing deals. I don't know if you've seen the kind of the tie-dye Knuff sweatshirts,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that was one of the highest selling number of units.
Sure.
Of an individual SKU item we've ever had. Well, I shouldn't say SKU. Of an individual item that we've ever had in our history.
Wow.
So I don't know specifically kind of which way from either a Web3 or, Web3 is still a thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't tell anymore. Everything's moving so fast. But what I would advise everyone is stay tuned because between partnerships, licenses, new things, it's really supercharged the Mattel brand. So I'm very excited about their future.
Yeah.
And I'm just delighted to have been a part of the journey up until now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about it, you guys could have just sat back on the retail toy business.
Right.
But then
We were losing
visionary
money.
leaders,
Yeah.
now suddenly you're into these spaces that are massive, like,
Yeah.
billion-dollar movie. It's
Right.
pretty good.
Absolutely. And then, God willing, we're going to do it again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
So as a matter of fact, we've even changed some of our corporate language in terms of like our mission statement. And we've incorporated things like we entertain audiences now, whereas before it was very toy focused. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we're in it for the long haul. We believe in this. And we believe that there's value in kind of bringing this beloved IP to multiple generations.
Yeah.
So.
Any movie where, okay, the parent played with the toy, now the kid is playing with the toy, of course, like they're
Absolutely.
they just sold 2 tickets.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
No-brainer.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because our chairman refers to the Barbie movie as a cultural event.
Yeah.
And it really was.
It really was.
I mean, I think those 2 words really nailed what it actually did for us. Because it brought Barbie back in. Not that it was ever out, but it became very central to the conversation, and it became a trend. And
Yeah. Yeah, it was always kind of there.
right, you
Except
knew
for children or if you were a parent, but
exactly.
most adults that didn't have kids, they're not thinking about it.
Exactly. Now everybody wants pink curtains.
Right. Exactly.
I have my own. So.
Right. So, well, I know you're passionate about AI, and obviously you're kind of leading some of the charges of that, the organization.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Sure,
What you can tell
absolutely.
us.
boy, AI. Where do I start with that one?
Yeah.
That one was just that was a tsunami that turned into a tidal wave. The way I think about, and let me just kind of back it up and get really specific, right? So I'm focusing right now on generative AI, and the reason why I want to make the distinction is because AI in general has been around. You know that.
Sure.
I know that. You know, everybody knows that. But generative AI is kind of the new kid on the block, and that's the one that is kind of getting a lot of attention because it's so new, and people are still figuring out its capabilities. I have lived through. I remember the world before the internet, like personally.
Yeah.
I remember the world before iPhones and touchpad phones, before apps. I mean, everything I'm talking about literally has occurred within the last 30 years, if you think about it, right? I look at generative AI, and I know some people are you know, there are multiple camps. It's a very complex issue, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
it's, you know, I believe that people are very resilient, and that, in my mind, and I'm speaking very personally right now, because I've seen these other tectonic technological changes that have impacted our lives on a daily basis, I don't think generative AI is going to be any different, frankly. I don't think it's going to be the Terminator.
Yeah.
You know, and all this other stuff. Nor do I believe that it's going to completely take jobs away.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's very important that people kind of center themselves. What it is going to do is going to do the same thing that it's done with a lot of the jobs before these other technologies came along. There was no such thing as a social media manager 15 years ago.
Right.
Now there's
It's a massive industry.
exactly
Obviously we're
influencer.
here.
What the hell was that? You know.
Right.
So, you know, those are just two very unique examples where, you know, the people who got on board with the technology were able to understand the value or create value with it, or, you know, were the ones in the past. And it's the same thing with the phones, right? All the app companies and everything. I feel like we're in that same pattern again, you know? So that's kind of the backdrop behind everything, you know, that you know, I'm kind of doing right now. We, like everybody else, are trying to figure this out, right? There's really two things happening in the space. The first is you have generative AI being made available from a consumer perspective, right? Very similar to what happened with touchscreen phones. If you remember, the iPhone came out.
Yeah.
Companies didn't know what the hell to do with these things, you know.
But there's a clip of Steve Ballmer saying, "It's a joke. What do you
exactly.
think anyone's going to pay $600 for a phone?"
Yeah, exactly. And now what's happening today? Would you like us to give you a phone, or would you like to bring your own? Oh, by the way, here's our 10 apps. Download them.
Yeah.
You know, so there's this. We're kind of back to that, where there's this massive consumer wave happening. That's the ChatGPTs and the Googles, the Claudes, and all the other plus the $57 billion that were dropped in 2023 into startups.
Yeah.
That basically are all plugging into these ChatGPTs and everything. You know, not too many of them are actually using original technologies.
Yeah.
So there's the consumerism. On the flip side, you now have software vendors coming at you who have gotten on board and saw an opportunity to enhance their products. Microsoft,
Yeah.
Adobe, it's everywhere. You know, I mean, I'm seeing it in Oracle. I'm seeing it. You know, everyone's got a co-pilot. Everybody's got a chatbot. Everybody's got a, you know.
So right now it's in the form of chatbots and helpers, but where do you see it evolving for some of those?
It's interesting because everyone was gangbusters when you started 2024.
Of course.
But the software companies in particular are coming back to us, not just us, everyone I've spoken to. I've spoken to my friends in entertainment, you know, healthcare, and they are trying to charge very exorbitant add-on licensing costs.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so all of a sudden, you know, if you have, I'm going to pick on Microsoft. I love you, Microsoft, but you know, I'm going to pick on them for a minute. You know, if your licensing is, I'm going to make up a number. Let's say $10 per person per month for 15,000 people in your organization, right? That becomes whatever that multiple is. But now that they've developed Copilot, and let's say they come in and they say, okay, that's great. We love you as a customer. If you want Copilot, we're only going to charge you an extra $20 for this capability. So now all of a sudden, your carrying cost from Microsoft triples.
Yeah.
You know? And the question is, what do you get from that investment? A lot of people are struggling to find that out.
Yeah.
You know? Same thing with the Adobes, that sort of thing. So on the one hand, you have this groundswell from the consumer side. On the other hand, you now have all of the software vendors coming at you with all these, you know, incorporated, you know, technologies or brand new tools, you know, very industry specific tools, that sort of thing. So it's an interesting time. From my perspective, in terms of my day and day, you know, a lot of it is still the same. It's really about tools implementation, but we do have this now groundswell where it started out with just understanding, like, for example, I was told, oh, just teach people how to prompt.
Right.
Well, no, that's, you know, yes, that's important.
Right.
But what about, do they know when the thing is hallucinating? What about, you know, if it's coming back with crap information, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
People need to learn awareness. People need to learn ethical use, that sort of thing. So in my circles, a lot of the conversations have kind of shifted away from capabilities and more towards responsible use.
Okay.
And that is kind of a big theme for everything that we're doing right now. And when I say we, I'm talking everybody I know.
Yeah.
At this point. Also, you know, how long have we been at it now? November will be 2 years since ChatGPT was first introduced to the world.
Yeah.
That's kind of the linchpin when people kind of think about the introduction of ChatGPT, of generative AI. You know, we've learned a lot in 2 years.
Yeah.
Like I said, the focus right now for a lot of us really is in that, okay, you started out with the tools. It's not just about the tools, because what we're starting to find is some of them are crap, some of them are great, some of them are, again, it goes back to remember the days of the first apps, you know, and all that other kind of, yeah, exactly. But there are other human elements that have to be part of this as well. For example, inside of organizations, do you have a good governance structure? You know, I've uncovered 3 different generative AI governance structures inside of organizations so far, just from talking to my friends and colleagues.
Yeah.
You know, so there's governance. I touched on education, right, for your workforce. They have to kind of, you know, and even if you may not necessarily have rolled out generative AI into your organization at this point, or you're doing it in pilots or previews or whatever, having that information available to them and just letting them know that even in personal use, you should be aware that the thing can be wrong, that you should not be using things like company information because it gets consumed into the models, you know, it's used to train the models, that sort of thing. I mean, now it's become, remember when social media, like companies started putting out social media policies?
Right.
I equate that to that point.
Now it's AI policies.
Now it's the generative AI policies. These are the do's and don'ts. I actually posted on LinkedIn recently, a third of employees are knowingly using unsanctioned generative AI
to do their job.
tools to do their jobs. Unsanctioned.
Yeah.
You know, so, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a disconnect. You know, there's a disconnect between an organization's ability to respond versus an individual's desire to be more efficient. It's such an incredible conundrum that we're in right now.
Right.
So that's really a prime focus. It's really the tools and educating the organization and really shepherding people into this new realm, of generative AI.
And what does that look like, saying, okay, use this AI tool, don't use this AI? If you're writing emails, okay, that's okay. But
Yeah.
if you're doing this company policy, we don't want you kind of pulling it up on ChatGPT or something.
Exactly. So the background of it is really kind of starts with the type of partners that you're working with. It really is a technical conversation, right? So, for example, one of the reasons why Microsoft was so popular is because they run against your individual Microsoft Graph instance.
Yeah.
So it's stuff that's not exposed externally. It's inside of your private cloud. It is all your documents, that sort of thing. So, when you're working with vendors, there are questions like, for example, where does my data go? Am I training your overall model? Am I training my individual model? A lot of companies are going towards their own specific instances of models with partners. Security, massive, right? So can I get hacked? Can people get into the data that I've trained you with? Because now that I've set up my own instance, can someone hack it and get all of my maybe work in progress, intellectual property, that sort of thing, trade secrets, all that stuff. So definitely security, definitely not opening up, to general use for a lot of that. Like I had mentioned earlier, it's creating awareness with your workforce, in the workplace about responsible AI use, generative AI use. And then also transparency on behalf of the vendors, right? So if a particular solution says, I'll make it up, we use ThoughtSpot is one of the tools that we use. And they have actually a terrific Copilot, which it's got the side window and it bangs against data and you ask it questions and it answers questions. You don't have to read a report or you don't have to create a dashboard. It will do it on the fly, kind of stuff. And it's been doing that, by the way, for a while.
Yeah.
So this is not like you can look up ThoughtSpot on the web and you're like, this is cool. I was going somewhere with that. I kind of tripped myself up, so I apologize.
Yeah. So, that basically that is your main focus right now is, okay, let's clean up this across the organization, make sure no one is kind of exposing us.
Well, I mean, it's not, so the balance is you have to be careful about playing a defensive versus an offensive game. It has to be balanced, right? Because my focus is really kind of bringing up the organization in terms of maturity, right? So I call it organizational readiness, right? Do you have the necessary information that you need as an employee to be able to be successful, right? And we define success with not just the don'ts, but the do's, right? So that's a big focus of what I do. It's bringing the training, bringing the awareness, working with individual departments in terms of what does this really mean to like a procurement or a design organization or any of that other stuff. How do you get behind it? It's about opening up, creating art of the possible for our leaders inside the organization in terms of these are the sorts of things that you can actually do. And by the way, this is what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
It just so happens that I happen to be very deeply involved with it and what I do because it's change.
Yeah.
Hello, it's in my title.
Right.
So, but it is a combination of technology. It's a combination of governance, and it is a combination of kind of how you're thinking about the workplace.
Yeah.
And those are what I found, in my own work, but also working very closely, very shoulder to shoulder with a lot of other leaders and other organizations, trying to figure that because you're going to call your friend and say,
right,
what are
what are you guys
with
doing?
Exactly. Did Oracle come to you with this or so and so or what? In all my conversations, that seems to be kind of the magic 3 right now, point in time. That if you get that right, you're not just helping protect your organization, but now you're giving it the ability to actually innovate in the space.
Yeah.
If you clamp things down too quickly, too early, you stifle innovation.
Yeah.
The opposite is,
And efficiency
also
too,
true.
right?
Exactly.
So-
If you just give somebody a blank check and say, hey, go for it,
Yeah.
all of a sudden now, next thing you know, you might have, the latest plans for your products out on the internet and you didn't even know it.
Wow.
Or ChatGPT is kind of saying, hey, I know that Ford Motor Company is building a flying car.
Right.
Let me show you the plans.
No one's supposed to know about that.
Yeah, so balance is really the important thing, and making sure that all these important components are moving at the same pace to be able to provide the type of value that we know we can achieve using these technologies.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And now pivoting to kind of your role as a hiring manager, I wanted, anyone's in a hiring capacity, I love to ask these questions.
Sure.
And we've got some similar themes, kind of interested to what you have to hear. What are some main things you ask? Maybe not specific technical questions,
Yeah.
but general things that you like to see. What are some things like, that I hate to see that when they do that?
It's funny. I don't actually kind of have like a list of questions. I just engage in conversation.
Okay.
And the reason why is because I've already seen the person's credentials.
Yeah.
Right? I've got their history. I looked at it, I might have maybe a question or two about their background or what did you do in this particular instance. What I'm actually looking for is cultural connection.
Yeah.
Do I feel like this person is going to be a great fit for either my organization or we call our technology organization Global Technology, GTO, Global Technology Organization, or do I feel like they're going to be a great fit in there, whatever the case may be. So I really just engage with them in a conversation, usually starting off with, why are we talking today? What brought you here?
Yeah.
And take it from there. I mean, very similar to what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Also, I'm not a big fan of the 50,000 come in for 16 interviews. That actually happened to me once.
Yeah.
I swear to God.
6 interviews?
1-6.
Oh, 16.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was for a director's role at a place in Woodland Hills,
Yeah.
outside of Los Angeles. I'm not going to name the company. But they couldn't make up their minds.
So
And
just
like an
kept bringing
idiot,
you back?
I just kept going back because it wasn't that far. And, retrospectively, this was early on when I moved to California. I should have had the chops to say to myself, because I knew better,
Yeah.
that this is not the
Right.
right organization for me.
Yeah.
So that's really, that was a big learning experience for me. Even though it came later in life, it was still a big learning experience. So I'm not a big fan of specific questions or anything like that. Just tell me about you. Tell me about, what makes you most productive, what makes you feel like you're contributing. Tell me about some of your pet peeves, and then I always make sure that I leave at least, no matter how much time we're talking, at least 10 minutes for them to ask me questions.
Yeah.
And to me, not that I'm doing anything sneaky or anything like that, but, I would expect that somebody who's interested in working, I don't think about it as you're getting a job. I'm like, you're going to work with me,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
We're going to interact or whatever the case may be. I would hope that you realize you don't know everything about the company, the job, the role, blah, 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 whatever.
Right.
And that you have some questions, especially after we just talked about things like, well, what really pisses you off?
Yeah.
Because I will ask that.
Right.
Like what create? I don't say it that way, but I'll say, what does a bad day look like to you? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. And that's kind of where people actually expose,
Yeah,
right? They expose which type of employee they're going to be. It's
exactly.
the questions, the questions, like you said, what really frustrates you.
Yeah,
And you can see basically the type.
it's interesting. You just triggered something in me in a good way. Some members of my team call me their boss, and that always embarrasses me, interestingly enough.
Really?
I never introduce the people that are parts of my teams as they work for me. I always say that we work together, or I work with.
Yeah.
And for some reason, any connotation of a hierarchy makes me feel uncomfortable. But that's specifically with me and my teams.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know why, but I think just my leadership style is just very collaborative, and I don't look at people as, you know, I'm your boss, or
Right.
I actually kind of flip the script a little bit, and I tell them, you know, a big part of the reason why I get a paycheck is to make you successful.
Yeah.
If I'm not making you successful, then I really don't deserve that part of my paycheck.
Right.
You know, now I've had people that unfortunately, you know, had a very different perception of things, and you know,
Yeah.
things go south. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, it happens.
Right.
That's part of life, you know. But I do take a very kind of collaborative approach with that, and I think that kind of goes back into why I interview the way I do. I don't even think of it as an interview. I don't call it interviews.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, oh, we're having a chat today. Great.
Yeah. And I think that type of information, ideally someone like me, if you're interviewing for a job, can get that type of information on who they're talking to, because other interviews are obviously vastly different.
Right.
And you're asking kind of general personality questions, and you want to have something good prepared. You don't want to, what frustrates you? You know, does he want to hear this?
Yeah.
Right? So you want to have something worked out for that. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know,
That's-
I mean,
it's interesting.
a lot of times, you know, when people kind of like stare at me, if I ask them to describe a bad day, they're kind of like glaring at me because I know that they're trying to filter their response.
Right.
You know, like I know what a bad day looks like. Nothing's working right. You know, someone pissed you off, someone stole your lunch, whatever, right? But they're trying to appropriately filter their response to me, and like if it starts to go into like 15, 20 seconds, and they're
still
doing
thinking.
that, I'm like, shoot from the hip. Just, you know, don't filter it. Just give it to me. You know, kind of a thing. So, yeah, for me, it's really about fit with my team, fit with me, and fit with the organization. Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay. So where can people find you? I know obviously we discussed your book as
Yes.
well. Obviously, I know you're very active on LinkedIn. You write a lot of interesting things on Gen AI.
Yeah.
So where can they find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. You can look me up, Tony Fatouros. Oddly enough, there are 3 of us.
Wow.
I'm not the Australian one.
Yeah.
And
Mattel one.
And I am not the guy who is in Los Angeles anymore. I'm the guy in the greater Fort Lauderdale area that works for Mattel currently. Yeah, so you can definitely find me on LinkedIn. I'm not on a lot of socials. I really stick to LinkedIn, and the reason why is because I'm very fortunate that my job is my hobby.
Yeah.
I know that sounds really nerdy, but it's okay. You
Yeah.
know, we should all be blessed, right?
Right.
And that's actually where I find and interact with people on the topics that I care about. So definitely you can find me on LinkedIn. I do have a book coming out.
Yeah.
It is called AI Ready. It is the leader's guide to scaling generative AI through organizational readiness. So everything I just talked about earlier, you know, the important aspects is really what the book is about. The thing that really sets the book apart is the fact that I'm writing it from an insider's perspective. I'm not a wannabe AI guru telling you to go try my favorite 10 tools or anything like that.
Right.
I am not a big 4 KPMG. I'm sorry, I'm not picking on KPMG. But BCGs or any of those other ones coming in and saying, yes, I have the best way to do this, because I don't.
Yeah.
What I am telling you is this is what I've tried. This is what my friends have tried. This seems to be the recipe that's working, and this is how we got the best mileage. So this is an insider's guide.
Yeah.
So the name of the book is AI Ready. It's going to be available on Amazon this summer.
Nice.
And if anybody wants to check out kind of the preliminary information about the book, you can go to aireadybook.com
Yeah.
and check it out.
Nice. We'll have all those links in the comments section as well.
Great.
And well, yeah, I mean, Tony, this was great. I wanted someone with your type of background because obviously you're doing super interesting things within the organizations. And it's not, you're in technology, but as you said, you've never coded one line. Right. So I think it's great to kind of show the diversity that technology of different jobs that technology could bring. And, obviously check out the stuff he's doing over at Mattel.
Absolutely. Everyone out there, show some love to your project managers, your program managers, your business analysts, and all those other folks that don't necessarily, go heavy on the keyboard. So
yeah, you can still make a great living and
absolutely
do really some interesting stuff as well as
amazing stuff. We live in an amazing time.
Yeah,
I'm really blessed to be alive right here, right now, and in the career that I am. Like I said, I'm a nerd because I love what I do.
Yeah, I mean, can't beat that, right?
Nope.
Okay, Tony, thanks again.
Thank you.
And we'll check you guys next time.